In the Nag Hammadi desert of Egypt, in 1945, a farmer accidentally unearthed something that could change everything we know about the origins of the universe. It wasn't a mummy, nor was it gold or jewels. It was a collection of ancient texts buried nearly 2,000 years ago. And among them, a particular book told a story older than even Genesis. We are all familiar with the opening line of Genesis chapter 1, verse 1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. But what happened before that moment? Before there was light, before there was darkness, even before the concept of time, what existed? The secret book of John, one of the texts found at Nag Hammadi, paints a completely different picture of creation. A story of a world of light beyond human understanding, of powerful spiritual beings, and of a cosmic tragedy that led to the birth of the material world we live in. But before we delve into this mystery, we need to understand, why was such an important text buried in the desert? Who tried to hide it? And more importantly, why? In Genesis chapter 2, verse 7, we read, "The Lord God formed man from the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living being." But the secret book of John tells a much more complex and mysterious story about the origins of humanity. A story involving opposing cosmic forces, divine conspiracies, and a shocking truth about the true nature of humans. What we are about to explore not only challenges traditional understandings of Genesis, but also raises profound questions about the nature of reality, the destiny of humanity, and the relationship between humans and the Creator. But perhaps the most astonishing thing is not the content of this ancient text, but the remarkable similarities it shares with our most modern cosmological theories. Let's embark on a journey to uncover the true story of creation, a story buried in the sands of time until now. To understand the significance of the secret book of John, we need to go back to the time when the first story of creation was written. Genesis, the first book of the Bible, is not just a religious text. It is the foundation of three major religions: Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, shaping the thinking of billions of people over thousands of years. But there's an interesting fact that few people know. Genesis actually contains not one but two different creation stories. In chapter 1, God creates humans in his image. God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. Genesis chapter 1, verse 27. But in chapter 2, we see a different version. The Lord God formed man from the dust of the ground. Genesis chapter 2, verse 7. This difference is not a mistake. It is a sign that the story of creation is much more complex than we often think. And this is where the secret book of John begins to have special significance. Let's go back to Egypt in 1945. Muhammad Ali, not the famous boxer, but an Egyptian farmer, was digging near the cliffs of Jabal al-Tarif. He accidentally discovered an ancient sealed clay jar. Inside were 13 ancient leather-bound books, written in Coptic, the last stage of the ancient Egyptian language. This was not an ordinary discovery. These books were part of a secret library, buried around 367 AD, when Bishop Athanasius ordered the destruction of all non-canonical texts. The secret book of John, also known as the Apocryphon of John, is one of the most precious texts in this collection. But what makes this book so special? It doesn't just tell a different creation story, it reveals a completely different cosmology, a complex belief system known as Gnosticism. The secret book of John opens up a shocking perspective on the origins of the universe. Instead of beginning with an act of creation as in Genesis, this text takes us to an even more ancient reality, a state of existence beyond all concepts of space, time, or even existence as we understand it. This is the starting point of everything, where even words become powerless to describe. But perhaps the most shocking aspect of this text is how it explains the origin of the material world. According to the secret book of John, the world we live in was not directly created by the Supreme Being. Instead, it is the result of a cosmic tragedy, a story of ambition, error, and unforeseen consequences. This raises an important question. Why was such a story buried? The answer lies in the early years of Christianity, when a fierce battle of ideas and beliefs was taking place. In 367 AD, Bishop Athanasius of Alexandria issued his famous 39th Festal Letter, listing the books accepted in the Bible and those that were not. But there's something strange. Many ideas in the secret book of John have remarkable similarities with modern scientific theories about the universe. The concept of a reality beyond space and time, of multiple dimensions, of the complex relationship between consciousness and matter. All these seem to echo in the theories of quantum physics and modern cosmology. But what is truly shocking is not what this text reveals about the past, but what it implies about the future. Because if the secret book of John is correct, then everything we think we know about our origins, our place in the universe, even the nature of reality, all need to be reconsidered. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. Because the true story of creation, the story that the secret book of John is about to reveal, is far more astonishing. Imagine a reality beyond all limits of human language and thought. A state of existence with no time, no space, not even the concept of existence as we understand it. This is the starting point of the secret book of John, a beginning even more ancient than the familiar opening line of Genesis. While Genesis chapter 1 verse 1 begins with, "In the beginning God created the heavens and the earth," the secret book of John takes us to an even more primordial reality, where the monad reigns. But what is the monad? It is not a god in the way we usually understand. The monad is the ultimate source of all existence, an entity beyond all definitions and limits. The secret book of John describes the monad as follows. The one cannot be perceived by anyone. No one stands before him. No one can measure him. He is beyond all measure. He is infinite. He cannot be comprehended. Interestingly, this description has remarkable similarities to how modern physicists describe the primordial state of the universe before the Big Bang. But the story doesn't stop there. From the monad, another wondrous entity emerges, Barbelo, described as the first thought of the monad. Barbelo is not a being in the usual sense, but a form of pure consciousness, a perfect reflection of the monad in the spiritual realm. This is reminiscent of a concept in the Gospel of John chapter 1 verse 1. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. But in the secret book of John, this relationship is even more complex and profound. Barbelo is described with 5 divine attributes: thought, knowledge, incorruptibility, eternal life, and truth. Each of these attributes is an aspect of pure spiritual reality, a level of existence far beyond the material world we live in. But perhaps the most notable aspect of Barbelo is her role as the spiritual mother. While most ancient religious traditions often depict the origins of the universe in masculine imagery, the secret book of John presents a more balanced perspective, where the feminine principle plays an equally important role in the process of creation. From the union of the monad and Barbelo, a new entity is born, Christ, but not Jesus Christ as we know. This is a cosmic Christ, an expression of pure divine light. The appearance of Christ creates a perfect triangle of spiritual reality: monad, source; Barbelo, thought; and Christ, light. This creates a completely different picture of the origins of reality compared to what we usually know. Instead of a singular act of creation as in Genesis, the secret book of John describes a complex spiritual evolution, a gradual expansion of consciousness and reality. But this is just the beginning of the story, because from this perfect world of light, a cosmic tragedy is about to unfold. A series of events that will lead to the birth of the material world we live in, and more importantly, will explain why we are here. Before we move on to the next part of the story, let's pause for a moment to reflect. If this is the truth about the origins of reality, what does it say about our true nature, about the purpose of existence, and most importantly, about the ultimate destiny of humanity? But to understand these answers, we need to confront one of the most shocking revelations of the secret book of John, the truth about Sophia and the birth of the Demiurge, the creator of the material world. In the perfect world of light of the monad, an event occurred that changed everything. A solitary act by Sophia, the goddess of wisdom. But before we delve into this story, let's recall the warning in Proverbs chapter 16 verse 18. Pride goes before destruction, a haughty spirit before a fall. because this is exactly what happened with Sophia. Sophia, which means wisdom in Greek, is one of the aeons, high spiritual entities born from the expansion of the monad. But unlike the other aeons who always act in harmony with the monad, Sophia did something unprecedented. She wanted to create something without the consent of the monad. The secret book of John describes this fateful moment. Sophia wanted to create an image from herself, without the consent of the spirit, without her partner, and without the knowledge of the monad. This was a bold act never before seen in the history of the universe, an act that would lead to unforeseen consequences. The result of this act was the birth of Yaldabaoth, a being described in the secret book of John as a creature with the form of a serpent with the face of a lion. Yaldabaoth, also known as the Demiurge, is a half-spiritual, half-material being, possessing the power of his mother, but lacking the perfection of the world of light. Astonishingly, Yaldabaoth did not recognize his origins. Blinded by arrogance, he declared, "I am God, and there is no other God besides me." This declaration is reminiscent of Isaiah chapter 45, verse 5. "I am the Lord, and there is no other. Apart from me, there is no God." But according to the secret book of John, this is a mistaken claim from an imperfect being. In his blindness, Yaldabaoth began to create the material world. He created subordinate angels called archons, and with them, he created the sky, the earth, and all matter in the universe. But this was an imperfect creation, a distorted reflection of the perfect world of light. Sophia, realizing her mistake, was deeply regretful. This regret is described in the secret book of John as a cosmic sorrow, an event that shook the entire world of light. This is reminiscent of how Genesis chapter 6, verse 6 describes God's regret. The Lord regretted that he had made human beings on the earth. But the story doesn't end here, because while Yaldabaoth was creating the material world, something unexpected happened. When he looked down into the waters of chaos, he saw a reflection of the world of light, a vision of the monad and the aeons, and from that moment, a grand plan began to form. The secret book of John tells that the aeons, seeing the state of Sophia and the distortion of the material world, decided to execute a bold plan. They would use Yaldabaoth's own arrogance to create something he did not anticipate, a spiritual Trojan horse that would bring divine light into the material world. And this is where the story of the creation of humanity begins. A story completely different from what we know from Genesis. A story of how within us lies both the mark of Yaldabaoth and the divine spark from the perfect world. But to understand this secret, the true origin of humanity and the purpose of our existence, we need to delve even deeper into the shocking revelations of the secret book of John about the creation of Adam and Eve. When we place the secret book of John alongside Genesis, we see a strange thing. These two stories are both remarkably similar and profoundly different. It's like looking at a picture through two different lenses. The same truth, but told from two completely different perspectives. First of all, both texts begin with a primordial reality. In Genesis chapter 1, verse 2, we read, "Now the earth was formless and empty, darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters." The secret book of John also describes a primordial state, the monad, a reality beyond all definitions and limits. Both texts speak of the role of light in the process of creation. Genesis chapter 1, verse 3 states, "And God said, 'Let there be light,' and there was light." In the secret book of John, the divine light from the monad and barbello also plays a central role in the process of creation. Another notable similarity is the concept of the image of God. Genesis chapter 1, verse 27 says, "So God created mankind in his own image." The secret book of John also describes humans as being created in the image of the world of light, although through a much more complex process. However, the differences between the two texts are even more profound than the similarities. The most significant difference lies in the nature of the Creator. While Genesis describes an all-powerful and perfect God, the secret book of John speaks of Yaldabaoth, an imperfect being who claims to be the only God. This leads to a fundamental difference in the understanding of the material world. In Genesis chapter 1, verse 31, God saw all that he had made, and it was very good. In contrast, the secret book of John views the material world as an imperfect creation, a distorted reflection of the world of light. The story of Eve is also told in two completely different ways. In Genesis chapter 3, the serpent is the deceiver, leading humanity into sin. But in the secret book of John, the image of the serpent takes on a different meaning. It is the messenger of divine wisdom, helping humans realize their true nature. Perhaps the most important difference lies in the purpose of creation. Genesis describes a perfect plan of God, while the secret book of John tells of a cosmic tragedy and the rescue plan of the world of light. These differences are not just academic matters. They raise profound questions about the nature of reality and the role of humans in the universe. If the secret book of John is correct, then each of us carries within us a divine spark from the perfect world. And the purpose of life is not to obey a creator, but to awaken and realize our true nature. This is reminiscent of Jesus' words in the Gospel of John chapter 8, verse 32. Then you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. But perhaps the truth that the secret book of John speaks of is deeper than what we usually understand. As we delve deeper into the secret book of John, we discover an astonishing fact. The ideas in this text do not just appear independently, but also bear the imprint of many ancient civilizations, like a kaleidoscope, reflecting the wisdom of many different cultures. Let's start with ancient Egypt. The concept of the monad in the secret book of John has remarkable similarities with the god Atum of the Egyptians, the self-created god from the primordial chaos. In Egyptian theology, Atum is described as the one, the source of all existence, similar to how the secret book of John describes the monad. Greek philosophy also leaves a deep imprint. The concept of the aeons is reminiscent of Plato's theory of the world of ideas, a perfect reality beyond the material world. When Plato speaks of the cave in the Republic, where humans only see the shadows of reality, this reflects how the secret book of John describes the material world as a distorted reflection of the world of light. But perhaps the most interesting are the similarities with the Zoroastrian tradition of ancient Persia. The struggle between light and darkness, between the perfect spiritual world and the imperfect material world, is reminiscent of the struggle between Ahura Mazda and Angra Mainyu in Zoroaster's cosmology. But what is truly shocking is how these ancient ideas resonate in modern science. When the secret book of John speaks of a reality beyond space and time, this is reminiscent of Einstein's theory of relativity and the concept of space-time in modern physics. The concept of multiple layers of reality in the secret book of John, from the monad to the material world, has surprising similarities with string theory and the concept of the multiverse. When physicists speak of 11 dimensions in M-theory, we cannot help but think of how the secret book of John describes different layers of reality. Even the idea of Sophia and the creation of matter has strange similarities with the chaos theory in modern physics. When scientists speak of order emerging from chaos, this is reminiscent of how the secret book of John describes the formation of the material world. But perhaps the most notable similarity lies in the concept of consciousness. When the secret book of John speaks of the divine spark within humans, this is reminiscent of modern research into the nature of consciousness, one of the greatest mysteries that science is still trying to unravel. This raises a challenging question. How could an ancient text from nearly 2,000 years ago contain ideas similar to the latest discoveries of modern science? Could it be that the ancients possessed a kind of knowledge that we are gradually rediscovering? But perhaps the most important question is not how they knew these things, but what else do we not know? What secrets are still hidden in the ancient pages waiting to be discovered? And more importantly, how will these discoveries change our understanding of ourselves and the universe? Then you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. John chapter 8, verse 32. These words of Jesus take on a whole new meaning when viewed through the lens of the secret book of John. Because the truth that this text reveals not only challenges our traditional understanding of the origins of the universe, but also raises profound questions about the true nature of humanity and the purpose of existence. First of all, The secret book of John forces us to reconsider the relationship between humans and the divine. While Genesis chapter 3, verse 19 says that for dust you are, and to dust you will return, the secret book of John asserts that within each person exists a divine spark from the perfect world. This is reminiscent of Jesus' words in Luke chapter 17, verse 21, "The kingdom of God is within you." But the meaning of this is much deeper. If we truly carry within us a part of the world of light, then the purpose of spiritual life is not to seek salvation from outside, but to awaken the light already within. This is reflected in Jesus' words, "You are the light of the world." Matthew chapter 5, verse 14. The secret book of John also challenges the way we perceive the nature of evil and suffering. Instead of viewing these as the consequences of original sin as in Genesis, this text suggests that suffering arises from the imperfection of the material world and the lack of understanding of our true nature. The perspective of the secret book of John on a multi-layered universe with realities beyond the material world has remarkable similarities with modern scientific theories. When physicists speak of the multiverse and hidden dimensions, they are painting a picture of reality not unlike what this ancient text describes. But perhaps the most important impact of the secret book of John is how it changes our understanding of the purpose of existence. If we are not merely material beings, but also carry within us a divine spark, then the purpose of life is not just to exist and reproduce, but to awaken and realize our true nature. In today's age, when science and technology are expanding our understanding of the universe at a rapid pace, the messages from the secret book of John become particularly meaningful. It reminds us that knowledge comes not only from external observation, but also from inner exploration. Ultimately, the secret book of John is not just an ancient text about the origins of the universe. It is an invitation for us to look beyond the limits of the material world, delve deeper into our true nature, and reach higher in the journey of seeking truth. As we stand at the threshold of new scientific discoveries and unprecedented global challenges, perhaps it is time for us to reconsider these ancient wisdoms. Because, as the secret book of John suggests, perhaps the answers to humanity's greatest questions do not only lie in distant stars, but also deep within each of our souls. So the question for each of us is, how do we integrate this ancient wisdom with modern knowledge? And more importantly, how do we apply these understandings to our daily lives? To not just exist, but truly live and grow according to our divine potential. When an Egyptian farmer accidentally unearthed ancient texts at Nag Hammadi in 1945, he could not have imagined that he had uncovered not just ancient parchment, but a completely new perspective on the origins of the universe and humanity. The secret book of John, buried for nearly 2,000 years in the desert sands, has posed questions that even modern science is still seeking answers to. We have explored a creation story completely different from what we know from Genesis, a story of the monad, the ultimate source beyond all definitions, of Sophia and her bold act leading to the birth of the material world, and of the divine spark hidden within each person. As Jesus said in Matthew chapter 13, verse 52, "Therefore every teacher of the law who has become a disciple in the kingdom of heaven is like the owner of a house who brings out of his storeroom new treasures as well as old." Perhaps it is time for us to combine ancient wisdom with modern knowledge, to have a more comprehensive understanding of our place in the universe. In an era when science is discovering new realities every day, from the multiverse to hidden dimensions, the insights from the secret book of John are no longer far-fetched ideas, but become thought-provoking suggestions about the true nature of reality. Perhaps the most important question is not which story is true, but what does this mean for us today? If indeed each of us carries a divine spark, then our responsibility is not just to exist, but to awaken and grow according to our true potential. Share your thoughts in the comments. What part of this story touched you the most? And how can we apply these ancient understandings to modern life? Because perhaps, as the secret book of John suggests, the answers to humanity's greatest questions do not only lie in distant stars, but also deep within each of our souls. Remember to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next discoveries about the oldest mysteries of humanity. Because the journey of seeking truth continues, and perhaps the greatest discoveries are still waiting ahead.